Welcome to the news at 7 on NTA International. I am Lami Ali. Hannah Olainka is the sign language interpreter, and here are the leading stories. President Tinubu approves 18 billion naira for payments of outstanding insurance to the families of military fallen heroes. As World marks Egg Day, poultry farmers in Nigeria cry out owing to glut. Plus, Burkina Faso signs agreements with Russia for nuclear power plants. We begin with new appointments. President Bola Tinubu has approved the appointments of new chief executive officers for several agencies and parastatals under the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. This is in line with his resolve to base Nigeria's economic revival on the foundation of trade expansion through small, medium and large-scale industry facilitation in the country. A statement signed by the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Chief Ajuri Ngalale, indicates that Hussaini Ishaq Magaji, SAN, heads Corporate Affairs Commission. Industrial Training Fund, ITF, is Hafiz Ogun Oluwatoyin. Kamar Bakrin is for the National Sugar Development Council. Olufemi Oguyemi, Nigeria Export Processing Zone Authority. Nonge Ayeni, Nigeria Export Promotion Council, while Aisha Rimi is for Nigeria Investment Promotion Commission, and Bamanga Usman Jidda, Oil and Gas Free Zone Authority. Others are Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, to be headed by Charles Odi, Ifanyi Chukununso Keke Standards Organization of Nigeria, Rabiu Olowo, Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria, Anthony Atuche, Nigeria Commodities Exchange, Veronica Safian Danusa, Lagos International Trade Fair Complex, Lucia Shitu, Tafabalewa Square Management Board, and Oluwemimu Joseph Oshanipi, National Automotive Design and Development Council. In view of the renewed hope agenda of the present administration, President Bola Tinubu expects all new appointees in this critical sector to optimally deliver in accordance with new key performance indicating benchmarks as established by the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. By these presidential directives, the appointments take immediate effect. Now, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has approved 18 billion naira for the payments of outstanding group life insurance to the families of military fallen heroes. Minister of Defense Mohammed Badaru Abubakar announced this at a news conference to herald activities marking the 2024 Armed Forces Remembrance Day celebration. Defense correspondent Ismail Musa has the story.
This news conference heralds the commencement of activities marking the 2024 Annual Armed Forces Remembrance Day across the country, a period to honor departed military heroes who paid the supreme price protecting the nation's territorial integrity, serving armed forces personnel and their families. Activities marking the forthcoming celebration includes community service by members of the Nigerian Legion, skill acquisition program for widows, emblem launching, special Jumat and interdenominational church service.
The climax of the celebration will be the laying of words by Mr. President and other dignitaries at the Arcade, Abuja on Monday, 15th January 2024. The governors will also lay words simultaneously in their respective states.
To improve the welfare of military veterans and the families of the fallen heroes, the Minister of Defense stressed that the federal government approved inclusion of ex-servicemen and their families in the cash transfer program and the payment of debarment allowance.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has recently approved the sum of 18 billion naira to pay for the outstanding losses done for those officers that are not covered by previous years' life insurance.
The Military Pension Board is conducting regular verification to block leakages and ensure prompt payment of benefits to retirees. In Abuja, Ismail Musa, NTA News.
Still on defense matters, Egypt's role in the 1973 war marked a turning point in the history of warfare, which countries like Nigeria have continued to learn from, says the Minister of Defense, Muhammad Badaru Abubakar, who said this at an event commemorating the 50th anniversary of the Egyptian Armed Forces Day, celebrating the glorious October War victory. Defense correspondent Naja'atu Tijani reports.
Handing over the plaque of victory, one of the many symbols of military cooperation between Nigeria and Egypt. It is both a solemn and cheerful occasion, one which tells the story of victory and sacrifice described by Egypt's defense attaché to Nigeria.
The magnitude of the difficulties and the challenges that we have been able to overcome to reach our present, in which Egypt is writing a great success story.
Unity is also symbolized by the guests and defense attachés from diverse cultures who paid tribute to Egypt's fallen heroes, who died in the war with Israel in October 1973. Drawing parallels from the October War between Egypt and Nigeria's post-conflict rebuilding experiences, the Minister of Defense says Nigeria is learning from the Egypt experience and has adopted some of its counter-terrorism strategies.
Have been our traditional allies, and we're all in Africa, and Egypt and Nigeria are leading in economic development in Africa, and we have done a lot similar culture. Without them, probably this couldn't have happened.
As the occasion winds down, both countries express the desire to sustain and deepen defense cooperation and promote the culture of peace while striving to overcome violent extremism on the African continent. Naja'atu Tijani, NTA News.
The National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, says it is optimistic that the 2030 target of achieving complete mainstreaming of disaster risk reduction in every household in Nigeria will be realized. Director General of the agency, Mustafa Habib Ahmed, stated this as the commemoration of the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction in Nigeria. Ilyasu Yakubu reports that the 2023 celebration has as its theme Fighting Inequality for the Resilient Future.
Disaster management in all its ramifications requires high-level collaboration and effective strategies to minimize loss and destruction of lives and property in the event of any disaster. To achieve these, the UN General Assembly in 1989 set aside the 13th of October every year to celebrate disaster risk reduction approach and to also reawaken managers of disasters to prioritize disaster risk reduction syndrome to save lives and property. This year's celebration in Nigeria attracted stakeholders from far and near who converge on the headquarters of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, to brainstorm on how to prioritize early warning and preventive measures to reduce the devastating effects of floods on communities. The DG NEMA said the theme for this year's celebration is quite relevant as disaster risk reduction has become a key dominant paradigm towards building resilience and promoting sustainable development in a phase of new and emerging challenges.
We have strived hard to take disaster risk reduction to the grassroots through constant advocacy for state governments to set up functional SEMA and LEMCs with adequate funding and trained manpower to save lives and safeguard livelihoods in times of disaster.
Other stakeholders at the occasion spearheaded a new action to ensure that every individual on the planet is protected by early warning systems. High point of the celebration was the commemoration of the 10th anniversary of the disaster risk reduction mechanisms.
10! Congratulations!
In Abuja, Ilyasu Yakubu, NTA News.
All right, we have in the studio Dr. Daniel Obot, Director, Disaster Risk Reduction, National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA. Glad to have you join us on the news.
Thank you.
All right. Now, in the event of a disaster like flooding, what are the immediate steps affected persons should take to preserve life?
Thank you very much. Let me say good evening to Nigerians at this point in time. When a disaster occurs, the immediate step taken by the disaster-affected person is assessing the level of disaster occurrence. Will it be such a situation that the affected person continue at the place of residence at that point in time? If the situation will not warrant continuous staying at that location, he or she has to seek alternative location in order to save life. Because management of disasters, the most important thing is life saving. When that is actualized, you then look after the property. So saving life, saving property are very crucial in disaster management system.
All right. Talking about saving lives, when we look at this year's theme, that is fighting inequality for a resilient future, what would you say needs to be done in order to see that this is effectively achieved whenever disaster strikes?
The measures should include, first, we have to look at what are the causes of inequality. These can be attributed to the income level of the disaster-affected persons, the cultural attribute of the area of residence of disaster-affected persons, inequalities in terms of age, gender, racial discrimination, financial capability. So disaster management cannot be associated from development. It cannot be associated from putting dividends of democracy in place. Because when those things are put in place, developmental indices are recorded, people will be empowered, the aspect of income inequality will be addressed, poverty will be reduced, people will be empowered with financial capability to undertake measures that they can be saved at any point in time disaster occurs.
All right. Now, when we look at the mandate of the National Emergency Management Agency, what measures has it put in place to mitigate disaster and risk reduction, going by predictions of flooding in a number of states in Nigeria this year?
Yes, disaster management is a multi-stakeholding activity, multi-stakeholding, multi-sectoral approach. First, NIMET, that is Nigerian Meteorological Agency, will give forecasts, weather forecasts, especially on rainfall. Locations that will be affected by rainfall, severe rainfall, will be declared. With that, NEMA, through different means, will alert these areas to take precautionary measures that will save life and property. And in addition to that, concerning flooding, Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency is the statutory organization to keep forecasts on flooding. These are the products the National Emergency Management Agency rely on. Early warning information will be sent out. The early warning information is to activate early actions, because information alone, alert alone, cannot have effect. will not be efficient, will not be effective if there will be no early actions. So the affected persons or areas prone to flooding should take necessary measures to put in place actions at their own level that will reduce the level of flooding in order to mitigate the effects that will happen to the human population.
Thank you very much, Dr. Boyce, for the additional information.
Thank you very much for bringing me, by extension, the Nigerian National Emergency Management Agency for this program. And my advice to the Nigerian population is that we should comply with early warning alerts to save life and property. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Information and collaboration is key to mitigate the impact of disaster. You're watching the news on NTA International. We take a break now. More stories when we return. Do stay tuned. You're welcome back. Now, provision of hygiene services in Nigeria and increasing hand-washing education to help protect citizens from water-related diseases, especially children, resonates as activities to commemorate Global Hand-Washing Day commences in the country. Oluseyi Adiabo reports on engagements of the Minister of Water Resources and Sanitation with partners to kick off the events in Abuja.
The last experience with COVID-19 confirmed that hand washing is central and first line of defense in preventing outbreaks and reducing the risks of pandemics. Messages of authorities and experts have explained how good hand hygiene remains the cornerstone of safe and effective health care.
I always wash my hand before I eat.
Anything I do, I must wash my hand, because I know if I don't wash my hand, bacteria can come through that.
A report of Nigeria's Ministry of Water Resources though confirms high knowledge of hand washing practices in the country, but in practice, figures are worrisome as only 4% of the population are likely to practice proper hand washing with soap and water at critical times.
The message on this day, it's simple. Wash your hands and save your lives.
It's a global hand washing day that is calling people to ensure that all the critical times like after you use the toilet, before eating, after washing a baby's bum and so forth, you wash your hands.
October 15 every year is Global Hand Washing Day. These partners in National Hygiene Response say the series of activities to commemorate the day in Nigeria target an improvement in hand washing practices.
We must collectively seize every opportunity to improve access to hand hygiene facilities and ensure that everyone practices hand washing with soap at all times in order to realize our objective of building a culture of good hygiene.
The 2023 Global Hand Washing Day is themed Clean Hands Are Within Our Reach. In Abuja, Oluseyi Adiabo, NTA News.
Rebranding of the Environmental Health Council of Nigeria is underway. The process began in Abuja with technical review sessions of 14 major instruments critical for environmental health practice and the survival of the council in delivering a healthy environment. Charles Alpha reports.
The National Environmental Practice Regulation was reviewed last in 2015. Between that time and now, several environmental health challenges requiring modern approach and solutions have emerged. In keeping with the modern ways of doing things, the Environmental Health Council of Nigeria assembled these professionals in a technical session to review 14 major documents. They are also to come up with a standard and uniform structure the National Institute can adopt and utilize in pursuit of a healthy environment.
Our subject is the practitioners. Then our major subject also is the Nigerians, who are going to be the beneficiaries of whatever we do as part of the agenda of our rebranding process.
In setting the motion for rebranding, documents on guidelines for monitoring, evaluation, and surveillance system were reviewed. Others were delineation of roles and functions of practitioners at the federal, state, and local levels of the council.
We've taken care of obsolete ideas in the laws, identify the gaps, look at the emerging and emerging issues, and ensure that we fill in those gaps.
For instance, in the universities, have environmental officers who go for routine inspection every day. So they are going to benefit.
At the end of the review, the capacity of environmental health practitioners is expected to be enhanced to deliver on the rebranding mandates. Charles Alpha, NTA News.
Nigeria joins in marking this year's World Egg Day with the theme Egg for a Healthy Future. This year's celebration is coming at a time poultry farmers are complaining of market gluts. Musa Aliu has more.
The global egg business stood at $271 billion as at January 2023. The market grew by 8.7% from the $249 billion recorded in 2022. Projections show that the egg market is expected to grow to $374.89 billion in 2027. The World Bank ranks Nigeria as the second largest producer of chicken, and about 21 billion eggs are produced on an annual basis. However, compared to other countries, Nigeria's egg consumption is put at 60% per annum per capita, compared to 250 eggs per annum per capita in advanced countries. This brought about a glut in the market as supply is higher than demand.
The issue of subsidy removal also come, and now we are having a scarcity of maize, which make the price of poultry feed increase astronomically, and this will also translate into increase in price of a crate of egg, and this also affects the purchasing power of customer. So now the cost of egg as it is today is about 2,500 naira per crate from the farm. So then many people have, reduced the level of consumption. So the business is not moving as it was. So we are calling on government.
The Federal Minister of Agriculture and Food Security says her food security roadmap will address most of the challenges associated with poultry production in the country. Musa Aliyu, NTA News.
Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, says agencies under his watch will be strengthened through policies that will stop unnecessary capital flights from Nigeria to the rest of the world. This was during an engagement with officials of the Advertising Regulatory Council of Nigeria in continuation of his visit to agencies under the ministry. Salihu Gwanara reports.
The week-long fact-finding mission by the minister and his team is to facilitate the desire to explore and set machineries in motion on how to positively harness human resources to fast-track the development plans of the government. Director General of Advertising Regulatory Council of Nigeria, Olalekan Fadolapo, said, so far, the agency's regulatory framework and activities are in line with the new narrative of the government.
If they throw us out of the budget, it's going to affect us in such a way that we need to reduce our staff, and most especially the northern people. We don't want a situation that this one will cause a major dislocation. To help us look at it, we have done a letter to appeal to the DG budget and the Minister of Finance.
Advertising is not just business, it is also a way to engage the nation, promote our culture and values, and reflect our diversity. It also provides direct and indirect job creation and inclusion. And that's why I was particularly excited when you were mentioning the issue of local content. This is absolutely important because whatever we do, we have to see that jobs for our youth are protected. And I want to emphasize this. We cannot afford a situation where all the jobs that are meant for Nigerians are taken out of this country. There is nothing that is in advertising that cannot happen in this country. We have every potential. Of course, down the line, if you have some other things that you can do outside, so be it. But it's important that Nigerians play a key part in the affairs of Nigeria. And advertising should not be an exception to that.
The minister reiterated support to the rebranding Nigerian project by Akon in Abuja. Saliu Gwanara, NTA News.
Now, Burkina Faso's government said on Friday that it had signed an agreement with Russia for the construction of a nuclear power plant to cover the energy needs of its population. Justin Bemunyi reports that it is the junta's latest move to align itself with Russia after falling out with most of its Western partners.
The junta has turned to Russia for economic and military support since it seized power. Burkina Faso is one of the least electrified countries globally, with only 21% of people connected to power. The new deal with Russia is a culmination of talks the Burkinabe military ruler, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, had with Russian President Vladimir Putin in July during the Russia-Africa Summit in Moscow. Captain Traoré requested President Putin's support in setting up a nuclear direction. Russia is helping Egypt to build a nuclear power plant at cost of $30 billion, following a deal signed by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and President Putin in 2017. Russia also signed a deal to build power plants in Nigeria in the same year, but the project is yet to begin. Kenya has also announced plans to build its first nuclear power plant by 2027, but it is still to decide on its international partner.
Next is a check on Saturday's weather prospects for Nigeria and some cities across the world. And that ends the news at this time on NTA International. Hannah Olainka has been the sign language interpreter, and I remain Lami Ali. Do have a beautiful weekend.